My name is Rachel Dworkin of the Chemung County Historical Society. Today is January 15th, 2015, and I am here, 2021, and I'm here speaking with
Adam Bunce.
Okay, and this is for the COVID Memory Project. Adam, you are the owner of Turtle Leaf Café, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so can you tell us how COVID has impacted your business?
Sure. Well, it hit us out of nowhere, I guess you could say, and it hit us really hard. It's been an interesting year. This is we're going into our we've been in business for 9 years. It'll be 10 years in the fall. In a few weeks, I'll have officially owned it for 6 of those 9 years. So coming into 2021, I made the mistake of thinking I was going to be debt-free with the business because we were well on pace to
2021 or 2020?
I'm sorry, yes. I'll start it over again. Coming into 2020, made the mistake of telling myself it would be debt-free based on projections and the way things had been heading. And that quickly changed in March when the pandemic hit. It obviously ended up being the worst year that we've had in just about every category. Sales, sales and everything across the board was just horrendously affected.
So how does, let's say in 2019, how'd you do in terms of sales, or like what was 2019 like, and contrast that with 2020?
Sure. So I haven't looked at all of the numbers, and I should have probably printed some off and brought them with me. But I know we typically do about $500,000 a year in sales, and I'm pretty sure that 2020 ended somewhere around 200,000. So that's a pretty big, pretty significant drop.
Okay, so set up the timeline for me. In March, the shutdown happened. And how long were you shut down for?
Sure. So we had it was a 12-week shutdown. It was basically, I think, March 26th. I remember that because it was a few days before my sister's birthday. So I believe it was March 26th to about June 20th was that 12-week period that we had shut down entirely. So no sales at all.
And then in June, you picked up doing.
So June is when the governor changed up some of the criteria for restaurants and things like that. He started to allow outdoor dining. June in upstate New York, it's a beautiful time for outdoor dining. So we said, well, we'll start with the outdoor dining, and they eventually, obviously, takeout had been allowed the entire time. And then they were allowing 50% capacity inside as well.
So did you do takeout and curbside?
We did. So technically, I guess this is probably something that I should be specific about. Technically, we were never fully shut down. Restaurants, for whatever reason, are considered an essential business. So we could have operated even during that first 12-week period that we did decide to close the doors. The problem was all the businesses around us were closed, or they were all having their employees work from home. So our doors stay open based on the people that work downtown. And if those people aren't working downtown and they're working at home, we weren't able to make up enough sales even in delivery or just doing takeout to justify being open. Then when things started to shift in June, that's when we decided, all right, we're going to give this another go. And so we've been doing takeout the entire time.
Now, I know sometimes in previous years you've had booths at Wisner Market. Did you do that again this year?
Correct. So because we had shut down, Wisner started, Wisner Market runs June to September. It's a 4-month run. We obviously were shut down the first few weeks. And when I was signed up and paid and everything when March, all the paperwork came out in February or March, and then I just emailed them, and I said, listen, I don't think this is going to work out. I don't even know when I'm going to reopen. I don't know what my staffing is going to look like. So we didn't do it for the first time in the history of the cafe being located in Elmira. So for the last 5 years, it was the first year we hadn't done it. But by the time the last 2 weeks rolled around in September, they had a lot of vendors shifting out. By that point, my staffing had kind of been ramped up a little bit. So we jumped in for like 2 weeks at the end of the season.
Okay, so tell me about staffing. How many had you employed in 2019?
So 2019, every year prior, really, we had always carried 12 to 13 at any given time, maybe 11 if, but anywhere from 11 to 13, but usually it was 12 or 13. Pandemic hits, most of my staff, obviously all my staff was laid off for that 12-week period. Some of them either got jobs elsewhere, if they were fortunate enough to even find a job, because there weren't a lot of people hiring in that stretch of time. I had a few, or I had another one that moved away. So I think when we opened up in June, we were probably running with like 9, and it was all part-time. Like most of my staffing is part-time anyway, but they were only getting 15, 20 hours a week. It wasn't like crazy hours by any means.
So are you back to full staff now, or still?
No, so we're still at 9, so the biggest reason is until technically this week we still hadn't been allowed. So they ended up shutting the dining rooms down again. So in the summer in June around the 20th, they allowed us to do the 50% capacity. Then whatever 12 weeks ago was, so end of October, no, it was like the end of September, they actually started doing a new designation called zones. And it was more of a micro cluster approach instead of shutting down the entire county like they were initially. For whatever reason, the area that we fall into was considered an orange zone, which meant we were not allowed to do dine-in again. So we went from being shut down from 12 weeks to start the year, opening during the summer with limited capacity, to being shut down again for the last 12 weeks through this week. So because of that, I wasn't able to hire people because sales were already down to begin with. All the restrictions that we were faced with were very heavy, and you have to watch every penny. 150,000 restaurants are estimated to close across the United States by the time this pandemic is over with. It's already at 110,000, so that's another 40,000. I don't want to be one of those numbers. So, and I don't want to have to lay my staff off either. So, so thankfully, we've pulled through so far. I think the outlook is good. I think the outlook is better now than it was obviously in March. We just had a kind of it changed so much. Like there was weeks that it would change during the day, but not even just in the week. Like it could be one thing Monday morning, and by Monday afternoon it could be a whole different approach that the state or the county was taking. And I guess that's because we hadn't really ever gone through anything like this before. So, it's just quick to act, and just to making sure you make good decisions that are going to kind of put the cafe and the business in a good path ahead.
Okay. Where do you see the cafe a year from now, assuming that the vaccination schedule goes as planned?
Sure. So when you hear Andrew Cuomo speaking of the vaccinations right now, this next phase of the phase, I guess we're currently in right now, they don't even expect to be out of that for the next 3 months. So that's going to already put us at almost May. And then there's still obviously more phases that need to happen after that. I feel like the rollout, unless they find a way to ramp it up and get more vaccines into our hands sooner, it's going to take a while. I don't think, I'm hoping, I'm optimistic that 2021 will absolutely be better than 2020, but I still don't think we're going to be back to normal, whatever normal is. I think it's gonna take some time. I still think there's people are still afraid to go out and eat, even with a mask on, not while they're eating, but while they're walking through the cafe, things like that. So there's still some hesitancy from some people to even come out to eat. And I just feel like, even the downtown right now is entirely different. The downtown does not look like it did 2 years ago or even a year and a half ago. There's just still quite a few people that are not working downtown. They're still working at home, working remotely. And who knows, if they've been able to work remotely successfully for the last year, maybe they don't come back to their offices downtown. Maybe they're companies decide that, hey, they can work remotely. Those companies can save the overhead of having buildings and offices downtown. So this could really, it could shape so much. So I'm optimistic for us moving forward, but I just know that I don't think it's going to look anything like it did before. It's going to take some time.
Okay. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about like how it's affected you in your personal life. You were off of work for several months.
Yeah.
What was that like?
So actually, I was off of work, but I wasn't off from work. There were several things that I did during that 12-week stretch. I have a nanny because I have a young daughter at home. I didn't want to have her not get paid. So the last thing I wanted to do was stay home with my daughter, even though it would have been great. I would have enjoyed that time. But I also didn't want her to not get paid. So we just continued, and thankfully, even though my cafe took a tremendous hit, my wife works in the medical field. So where the cafe dropped off, she obviously picked up because she was dealing hands-on with COVID patients daily. So from the personal financial side, she was able to kind of make up where the cafe wasn't able to make up. So we kept the nanny on, and I, along with a friend of mine, just spent 12 weeks kind of just doing things in the cafe that probably had needed to be done. So we put new tables in, we put new furniture in, we brought new equipment in, we did a ton of remodeling and things like that to stay busy. Which may have been risky when you look back, because when you hear of 150,000 restaurants closing their doors, you're doing all that work and you don't know what the future looks like. But I always felt like this area has always supported us since we've opened in Elmira, and I felt like whenever our doors open back up, even in the beginning I didn't know how long it would be, if it would be a few weeks or a few months, I had no clue. I just felt like whenever those doors did reopen that we would be supported, and that's been the case. I think we've always kind of been known to give back to the community, and I feel like it works the other way as well. I think the community always gives back to us. So technically I wasn't making a paycheck, but I stayed busy because I just couldn't imagine sitting home. I was also helping out with some organizations like Meals on Wheels and stuff like that, volunteering with some of them, just to kind of fill the gaps in my day.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit about working with Meals on Wheels during the pandemic?
Yes. So we were donating a lot of food that we had at the cafe that we didn't want to go bad. So we gave them pretty much everything that wasn't shelf stable. We gave to them. It was probably a couple $1,000s worth of food. And it wasn't just me that did that. There was at least 5 or 6 other restaurants off the top of my head did the same thing. So, and they were obviously very grateful for that. We were actually also in the early stages feeding children that were obviously not in school. Schools were shut down. So we were, I think we had a lot of people in the community were actually giving us money just solely to keep those meals for the kids free. I know that our cafe fed over 1,000 kids in early March before we actually closed down for that 12 weeks. We ourselves had over 1,000 meals, as well as some of the other restaurants did some as well. And then when we had to close down, we had to shift things over to Meals on Wheels because we wanted to make sure that no kid was going hungry. The schools were offering free meals as well. The issue was some of these kids just didn't have a way to get to the schools to pick them up. So that was the logic. We would kind of be an option for those that may not, if they live too far from school to walk or their parents couldn't get them there, they could at least come to the cafe, or in another way they could have Meals on Wheels bring it right to the house for them.
So were you doing cooking or driving or both?
Prep, so meals, yeah, cooking. I wasn't actually doing any delivering.
Okay. You said your wife was working with COVID patients?
Correct.
Where does she work?
She subcontracts with a company called DaVita Kidney Care. She does dialysis, so they subcontract through Arnett.
Oh, okay. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about regarding your COVID experience?
No, no. It was a year we'll never forget. I know that, and hopefully we don't experience a pandemic like this for a long time to come.
All right. Well, thank you very much for speaking with me.
Thank you.